So people always ask me about couples work, right? Like what signifies that you need therapy, what happens in therapy, or what brings couples to therapy. So first of all, there's so many things that can bring a couple to therapy. Sometimes it's major ruptures like infidelity or lack of communication. Even though lack of communication doesn't feel like a major rupture, it is a really big tool, and if a couple is unable to properly communicate, it can cause a lot of really big issues. And oftentimes people like assume what their partner is thinking, and they assume what's happening in a partnership, and they don't often talk about really big issues. I find that fascinating as a couples therapist, because sometimes I'll ask couples, well, have you spoken about this? Or what are your thoughts around it? And sometimes there's preliminary conversation or like conversation that's not very deep, but then when we pull the layers back and we have like deep conversations about structural elements within a partnership, then you notice that there's kind of a lack of communication. So in this video, I'm going to list red flags that indicate a couple may benefit from therapy. Then I'm gonna talk about how to approach the topic of therapy with your partner, especially if you have a resistant partner. I'm always surprised at how resistant people are to, I would say just therapy in general, probably because therapy has been, or mental health has been stigmatized, but as we're moving away from that as a culture, people always see therapy as the last resort. Ideally, I would love for people to see therapy as even the first resort, right? Like things are fine in the relationship, maybe you just need to affirm a couple things or go over some missteps, or just have a third party who's able to help you maneuver some of these really big life issues. And the third party has no investment other than making sure that the team accomplishes the goals that they want to accomplish, right? And then lastly, we're gonna talk about what to expect in couples session. So I'll give you a little bit of an idea of how I do therapy. Every couples therapist is very different. I am what I call a relational therapist, and so I like to present the lens of like we're all in community and I'm part of your community and I'm here to help you achieve the goals within your partnership. So that's kind of the way that I present therapy. Again, every couples therapist is super different. I have the first level Gottman certification. I have some dialectical behavioral therapy behind me, internal family system. So there's a couple modalities that I have within couples work. I know you're like, DBT isn't necessarily for couples, but it can be used in couples work depending on kind of like some of the things that we're maneuvering in a partnership. Okay, so here's some red flags, or I kind of hesitate to say red flags, to be quite frank with you, because when people hear red flags, they become siloed in what is going on. So for instance, if I said, your partner doesn't communicate, that's a red flag, right? And then people are like, that's a red flag, we need to break up. And it's like, hold up. Sometimes what people are missing in the equation is that they're mind reading. Mind reading means to assume what your partner is thinking, or they're not communicating properly, or the way in which they communicate may be throwing the other person off. So it's like, I don't know, I'm kind of hesitant about the concept of red flags because I don't want people, as great as it sounds on YouTube and obviously for clickbait and stuff like that, it's just I want to be mindful. Like red flag seems a little like, we all have issues we have to work on. We all have areas that we need to improve and grow. And if somebody has something going on and you talk to them about it and they really want to grow the relationship, grow the partnership, enjoy the partnership, and they show up, is that a red flag? You know what I mean? Now, if they don't show up, then you can absolutely dump them. I'm just kidding, don't dump them yet. But anyway, that's why I'm kind of a little hesitant around the concept of red flags, but I will read them. Okay, so the first one is frequent unresolved conflict. conflict. So the question becomes, do you find yourself arguing about the same issues without a resolution? So what we say in couples work, or what I say in couples work, repair is really important. And so this is actually something that you will find in Gottman. I just want to make sure I'm not Gottman certified. So I want to make that very clear. I just have level 1 certification. But Gottman basically says that it's not really about the fact that you argue, it's how you repair through the process of a rupture. So when you have a rupture, an indication of the stability of a partnership is really how the couple I make up words, so bear with me. The couple repairs, and that there can be reoccurring issues that just come up in the partnership. And what I love about Gottman is they add this idea that if you approach these things with a sense of humor about it, and maybe humor isn't exactly the word that they use, but kind of a sense of levity about some of these things, that makes it easier to come together and repair. So it's like, yeah, I know this about my partner, but we still come together and we compromise and we do X, Y, and Z. But that would be kind of one thing to look out for. Like in your partnership, if you're unable to resolve conflict in a way that feels good for both people within the partnership, then definitely that is a great indication that you should think about couples work. If there's emotional distance, so that looks like if you feel disconnected from your partner and you feel more like roommates rather than romantic partners, then definitely therapy could be a great way to explore what is going on, what is causing the disconnect, how can we remind you or bring you back or kind of have you reconnect, rekindle. In some cases, I think in couples work, you have to be aware that we might be rebuilding something new altogether. So it's like you may have had one iteration of a partnership, and through couples work, you may have something totally different. Side note, couples work doesn't always mean you guys are two people are gonna stay together. It can mean that couples work helps you realize that this may not be the right partnership for either of you. And that's something to always keep in mind. If there's lack of trust, so if trust issues have come up through infidelity, dishonesty, or unmet expectations and needs, then therapy is a great way to come in and have additional support. And I think what's really important to underscore is the concept of unmet needs or unmet expectations, because I think sometimes people forget, like sometimes we're caught up in our own experience that we really do forget to articulate our needs to other people, or we make the false assumption that people know what our needs are, either because we assume they're logical, right? Like, of course I would need you to text me back. Isn't that logical, right? If you send a text. But sometimes people, the pace for which you communicate or send a text or follow up, like there needs to be more conversation. And I think sometimes we're not taught how much conversation is necessary in partnerships. And that leads to unmet needs, unmet expectations, which can develop into mistrust. I'm gonna underscore this again, poor communication. There are many different styles and modalities you can use, like Imago, going back to Gottman and how to support people in having better communication skills. And again, just something to think about. We're not often taught this, right? You learn how to communicate by the family system that you're in, and sometimes that doesn't always work in every different type of family style. Life transitions can cause tension. So the loss of a job, adding people to the team. So that could be children, taking care of parents, cousins, whatever the setup is, even dogs. I know that sounds kind of ludicrous, right? Like, how can a dog influence our partnership? But it may not be the dog itself, but it can be the expectations around the care of the dog. Moving from one place to another, those can add stress in ways in which people need additional support. And of course, this is the land that I live in, meaning this is my specialty, which is sexual dissatisfaction. I want to convey so much lovingly to all the people in the world that there is support and help for this. Sometimes people are like, it is what it is, and I want to lovingly say, it's not, and you can get support, and you can recreate a new relationship to this in any partnership. You just need both people to come to the table and be honest about what that looks like, you know, for both of you. Those are kind of some of the things that are going to lead you into therapy, or lead a couple to want to seek therapy, or things that you know that you can get additional support around. And so, yeah, those are some things. Now, here are ways, if you have a partner that is resistant, and that does happen. Again, we kind of highlighted the overall kind of cultural energy around therapy in and of itself.